we as African Americans see this as a symbol of hate, as a symbol of oppression, as a symbol to keep us African Americans, and I hate to say this, in our place.
The proverbial rocks in hard places for political America at the moment. Those on the right treading lightly when it comes to the issue of a flag. Those on the left treading cautiously with plenty of unrest from within their own ranks. And a picture of a presidential candidate that has both sides talking about if it was planned or just an accident. Let us loose the political animal then. The senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, David Drucker, along with columnist for National Review Online and Newsmax contributor John Fund. Gentlemen, I thank you both for joining us. We're going to get right to South Carolina, the flag itself, which has been of great concern now for the last several days. Nikki Haley, earlier in the day, the governor said, let's take it down. It would seem that people are starting to fall within that line. So, David, I throw it to you first. There's a thinking out there that Republicans are treading carefully in this, and maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should be a little bit more definitive. What's your take?
Well, I definitely think this is an issue that has roiled the Republican primary over the past few days. Number one, South Carolina is an early primary state, so Republicans there, first of all, need the votes of South Carolina Republicans and conservatives. And voters like that, they're mixed on the flag. They don't necessarily care all that much about it, but they don't like outsiders telling them what to do about it. And of course, if this were happening in another state where Republicans weren't campaigning, it would be a national issue, but not necessarily a Republican issue. I do think it would be good for the party if this flag was taken down. I think it would be generally good for the Republican candidates if they would be more definitive and just call for the thing to be taken down, because whatever people think about the flag, and there are all sorts of opinions, including opinions that are not racist and have nothing to do with the flag's past. Politics is all about symbolism. That flag symbolizes the Confederacy that seceded and wanted to keep blacks enslaved, and you just can't get around that.
John, is maybe one way to do this is to tell private citizens, if you'd like, you can use it on a T-shirt, you can put it on a bumper sticker, you can do whatever you want with it, but to have it sitting in front of a state house, to have it standing there every single day, that in itself might be the biggest issue here, correct?
Well, certainly the First Amendment allows people to wear almost anything they want. They certainly wear all kinds of flags today. I don't view the Confederate flag as an explicitly racist symbol. However, I do acknowledge that when it was placed on the front lawns of various state capitals or put in public places, it was by legislatures, back then it were Democratic legislatures, that were entirely white because so many of the citizens of the state weren't allowed to vote. So clearly, if you update it and have a new vote and a new decision, I suspect you're going to have a completely different outcome. I hope that Governor Haley has the legislature vote on this, because this is something I think that in order to have real legitimacy, the people's representatives have to weigh in.
All right, let's weigh in on what's happening with the Democrats here. John, to you first. The whole upheaval over trade, and there's now the thinking, actually it's been around for a while, that the Democrats are facing their own sort of Tea Party here, and there's a little bit of an issue going on in the left right now, and Nancy Pelosi might be concerned. Do you think she should be, and there are those out there who are looking to change the Democrats?
Well, actually, the cover of Newsmax magazine this month is about Hillary going left, and she clearly is scrambling to catch up with the new populist, anti-corporate image of the Democratic Party. And she herself, being so wedded to Wall Street and Goldman Sachs and the Clinton Foundation's copious corporate donations, obviously has an image mismatch there. The Democratic Party is moving left. It used to be that they would back a Democratic president on trade issues which are related to foreign policy concerns. No longer. And I think that we're going to see perhaps the starkest difference between the two parties we have ever seen in modern history, simply because the Republican Party is now firmly conservative, the Democratic Party is really moving left.
David, do you think that the GOP can take advantage of this in any way?
I think that they can. It just sort of depends on how and when. If Republicans win the White House in 2016, you're going to see this whole Democratic Tea Party scenario really blow wide open and play out, I think, a lot like the Republican battle with its own conservative wing has played out over the past few years. When you have the White House, and for the Democrats, they've had a historic figure in the African-American president, it's easy to squelch internal rebellions, and you kind of keep everybody in line because at least you have a really big piece of the political pie. If they lose the White House in 2016, and especially if they don't win any of the chambers in Congress, you're just going to see a ton of infighting as a bunch of powerless Democrats have nothing to lose but to turn on each other and try and fight for the heart and soul of their party, the same way you saw happen with Republicans after they were completely left powerless after 2008.
30 seconds left for both of you then. First 30 to John. The Associated Press picture of Ted Cruz that was taken that has a gun pointed at his head, which was basically in the background when the photographer took it. John, are you going to fall for those who say the photographer didn't mean anything by that?
Look, we'll never know. I do think, though, that the Associated Press has to be called on it because regardless of whether or not it was purposeful or not, it was just in bad taste, and they should have a better and more keen-eyed editor looking at what goes out over the wire.
David, I think that's probably one thing here. Maybe the photographer didn't exactly plan it that way. It's what happens. But look, come on. We all know that when it comes to looking at these pictures, you've got a chance. You can look at them. You can vet them. This should never have been printed. Bad taste.
Look, well, yeah, we'll never know, what was in the hearts and minds of the photographers and the editors at the AP, and they may have meant nothing. But it is true, I think, that had the tables been turned and there was a Democrat in that picture and not Ted Cruz, there would have been an uproar, especially depending on, who published it.
We would be looking at something along the lines of an earthquake scenario, I believe, David. You nailed that one right on the head. David Drucker, John Fund, always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. Coming up next, he has for many years stated his innocence. Well, then he got caught in a lie. Has he been caught in another lie that would keep him out of Cooperstown? Maybe a definitive word on the cheating of Charlie Hustle. That's when we come back, right here on The Hard Line.